to 44. What do you think, Suzanne? Should we launch in? Okay. Let me introduce our speakers. Ashton Vanus is a marketing major and a senior now, her last year. Carly Combest is in sports management. Ashley Moreno Gongora is a graduate student in chemistry. Brianna Edwards is in agricultural communications. Is that right? Or did I get, okay. And then Angel Avila is a marketing major with public relations minor, and also about to graduate. And right, so going on the job market, and I know because we haven't been in communication. So anyway, I will lead it off with some questions, but I also want the students to tell us whatever is on their minds, whatever experiences they have or what's important to them. And I'm not going to ask in any particular order. You guys can speak as you want. Like I said, tell us what is important to you, and then there'll be room for questions. We have a chat bar. And so I'm just going to start and ask about, think back to March, just before spring break, when you got the email from the president that said, your spring break's been doubled, and after that, it's going to be online for a while, or your professors walked in your classroom and told you that. What was your initial reaction like? What did you think? What did you feel? And you guys unmute yourself and just start talking.
I can go first. I think for me, it was a little shocking just because it was just trying to figure out how I was going to navigate everything online, just all my classes going virtual, as well as personal life, just kind of the changes that would go on with that. I don't think it was anything I expected, but it made sense, obviously, for everything that was going on. But more than anything, I was just trying to think how I was going to adjust personally and academically.
I can go next. So I'm not from Texas or anywhere around the Lubbock area. I'm actually from Florida. And so I think like whenever I first heard that classes were going to go online, it was just kind of hard for me to adjust, like, where do I go from here? Like, do I go home, or are we going to come back to Lubbock soon? And it was just kind of me trying to figure out, like, what did I need to do? And so I just kind of took a leap of faith and was like, okay, well, I'm just going to go home and spend time with my family. And so obviously we went fully online after that, and it kind of worked out. But I think additionally, like, I'm pretty self-responsible and disciplined to like do online classes. And so like I wasn't too worried about having to adjust to the full online format. I did like think that a few classes were going to be a lot harder and more challenging for what my major is, and it was. But I think me being so disciplined, it was kind of an easy transition.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah,
go ahead. You go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was definitely you know, different for all of us, not only students but professors as well. Some classes, the transitions were easy. You know, having lectures online and whatnot, and doing work that way. But in this case, specifically with Professor McDonald's class, you know, some classes that you need that face-to-face interaction, and, you know, those methods of teaching, you know, resonate way better with the students than through online methods. So I think it was just a learning moment for students and professors to see, you know, how we could get the most out of it from both ways. So it was definitely a challenge, but, you know, we all had to step up. And I mean, as for my classes at least, it went really well. And, you know, now we're in the fall semester, and I think everyone's adjusted for the most part. So yeah.
I think for me, when we first initially found out, you know, we got that extended week of spring break, so it made spring break 2 weeks. So initially I was kind of like, okay, cool, like a little bit more time to kind of kick back and relax. But for me, I'm a very hands-on learner, and I really do benefit from just being in class and not even necessarily talking to people, but just seeing it face to face rather than through a computer screen. So it definitely was quite a transition, and it wasn't necessarily complicated, but it was just there was no like time to prepare. I feel like it was just, you know, we had classes the Friday before spring break, and then that was it. We had spring break and it was just straight online, so it wasn't like there was any time to prepare. So that was the only thing that was kind of challenging for me, was just trying to kind of flip on a dime and get used to the new way of lectures and the way that class ran.
So for me, because I'm a graduate student, I have two roles at the university, which is one, just being a student myself in my own classes, but then I also TA for classes. And in chemistry, that's one of the harder subjects, I would say, to flip. And so a lot of us in the department were concerned on how exactly you flip chemistry to be online. So in my own classes, it was mostly we have seminars and presentation type classes. In addition, we have research. And so that was a big shock to a lot of us as chemists, is how do we go from working in the lab to doing chemistry from home? And then we also had the just the labs for the undergrads as well to flip. So it was a bit of a learning curve in order to come up with creative ideas in order to do chemistry online. And then also just in my own classes, not only are you facing just the anxiety of flipping a class, but also, you know, watching the news and everything that was going on in March. It was a lot of chaos, I would say, in terms of what was exactly going to happen, how long was this going to last. We didn't have a lot of information. And so not only in your school life, but also personal life, I'm sure everybody was a little bit on edge.
Now, Ashley, when I asked you if you would be willing to be on the panel, I said one of the things we want to ask you to talk about are challenges, and you said, oh, I had some challenges in your response. Do you want to talk about some of those challenges that you faced in this transition, or going to online, and the rest of you the same thing, maybe some challenges that you ran into?
Yeah, so some of the challenges that I ran into was, like I said, doing chemistry online it's really not something that most of us have ever thought about doing. And so mainly what it turned into was doing more literature search, because we were no longer allowed to be on campus. And so labs were not going on anymore. And we had to completely 100% work from home. And going from being on my feet all day and being at a benchtop all day to sitting at a computer 9 to 5 was a really big challenge for me personally, because I'm just so used to being on my feet, being a kinesthetic learner. And so having to just do a lot more reading and typing from home, it definitely was a bit of a productivity kind of learning curve in order to learn how to be productive from home.
Yeah, kind of feeding off of that, I think my biggest challenge was most of my classes went completely online. So, except for one. So I didn't have any Zooms or anything. So I think that was a huge challenge for me, just because I am such an interactive learner and really get the face-to-face value. So that by far, I would say, was definitely my biggest challenge, was not even having Zoom sessions.
Anyone else want to talk about Ashton?
Yeah, I'll talk. So I think for me, one of the biggest challenges I faced was when we initially went online. I stayed out in Lubbock for a little bit longer, but then I quickly realized that staying at the apartment by myself wasn't ideal, and I was used to having roommates. So I went ahead and went back home for about a month, and it was nice, except I have two younger siblings, and both my parents quickly started working online as well. And so we quickly learned that our bandwidth can't really support, you know, my brothers trying to do their Zoom in high school, middle school, me trying to do Zoom lectures and doing quizzes, you know, all the work that I have to do. and then both of my parents trying to do their work. So it quickly, we kind of realized that it definitely isn't ideal. So ultimately, I ended up staying home for about a month, but right before finals, I ended up coming back to Lubbock just because there were so few people at my apartment at the time that the Wi-Fi was better, and it was just challenging to try and transition myself to learn and almost be productive in my home environment, because I'm so used to going home for weekends and having fun with my family and just kind of getting a break from school and like hanging out with them, and then going, coming home for that time. It was very hard to kind of force myself to sit down and like do work when I don't have like a workspace there. And I'm a very big creature of habit, and all my stuff is the same here in Lubbock. So kind of like switching that, it was a little difficult, but yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely, touch on and agree with what Carly and Ashton said. Like I mentioned before, retaining the information learning in class from face to face and going online is definitely different. And it did become more challenging once it became online. And like Ashton mentioned, transition. I went home as well after everything was announced, and it gets difficult when your parents are working from home. I'm trying to focus on my studies at home, but I feel like my biggest challenge, I got taken out of like that study mode, I guess, like from being in Lubbock and focusing on myself and focusing on my studies here, then going back home and transitioning that focus to a different environment. That I think that was the biggest challenge, is just trying to stay focused and on top of my things when everything was like my surroundings and my environment was way different. So I think that was the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I can agree with like everything everybody said. And so my family raises cub lambs, and so I spent a lot of time with my brother, and so there's chores to be done outside and things to help him with keeping up the sheep and anything that we have to do, like baling hay and everything. And so between me trying to do my school and my brother pulling me outside, it was kind of a task to like tell him like, hey, I have school to do. I can't help you outside all the time. But so it was just me trying to juggle that. And then they live in the mountains, so it was just really hard to also like bandwidth and service to make sure that like I was constantly making sure I got the internet. And, like sometimes I had to go to my sister-in-law's work just to get enough Wi-Fi to like submit my assignments or anything. So just things I had to work through to make sure and ensure that I got my work done on time.
Yeah, that's one of the issues that I saw with a lot of my students being home, was that, trying to get who got the computer. There may only be one computer at home, and also the issue of, being able to work while, your brother's walking in the room behind you, or, I saw that with a few of them. What did you miss most about being at school while you were at home?
For me, it was a lot of the social aspects, and I'll just be honest with that. I feel like it's so important to just make friends in your classes and not really being on the everyday routine, I guess, that I was used to. It was a big adjustment for me, just because I felt like I was going 100 miles an hour to just nothing all of a sudden. So I think that's what I missed most, just being on campus, being able to see, classes, even your professors, and then the social aspects that went along with it. Definitely what I missed most.
Just to kind of follow up on that, I agree as well. Just seeing people in general. I live alone, and so when we first went on lockdown, it was pretty much very lonely, not to see any people, and that can kind of take a mental toll on you after weeks and months of not seeing anybody. The only interaction I got was at the grocery store, pretty much. And so it was hard to be able to focus on work when that was pretty much all I had to do.
Yeah, I think like a lot of the same, like, so I'm on the livestock judging team, and our Houston got canceled. We were supposed to leave for Houston, and then our classes got canceled. And so I think like my team and the interaction with my team and just going to workouts and practicing, like I missed that a lot. And then And I kind of am like a homebody, so the like going to class, like I miss that and miss like talking to my professors and stuff, but I don't think it affected me as much as probably like social butterflies, if you will, because I'm fine just being by myself and having my alone time. And so me going out and feeding the sheep and just spending time with my brother was enough for me. But it's obviously nice to be back in class, and I do enjoy getting to spend time with my team again.
Yeah, I'd say definitely, the social aspect. I mean, we're all, as human beings, we are social people. That's what we feed off, that's what we live off, even since the beginning of time. That's just how we've interacted and how we lived. But I think that was the biggest thing for me was, just seeing people's reactions, gestures, just little things that, you probably don't notice on a day-to-day basis, but when those things are taken away from you, you notice. And it just, we, like I said, it just like Ashley mentioned, it really takes a toll on you mentally when you can't interact, and it just really isn't the same. And learning and focusing on work, it isn't as fun at all when you're doing it by yourself. So.
Did you pick up any new study habits or learning techniques as a result of the pandemic?
For me personally, I think that I was able to adapt more to having notes online. That was something that I normally didn't do. I was usually taking notes via just pen and paper, but I find now more that I take notes online, I organize documents online, and so I think that's a little bit as well as some of the positives of this is a lot of more are becoming more technology savvy.
I can definitely feed off of that because I'm not techno savvy at all, but I have learned so much about Zoom since we started. And I think for me, I've realized like kind of from here on out, I realize how big technology does play into life, especially when it comes to school now. So it has definitely broadened my horizons. And I'm like you, I took notes, pen and paper beforehand, but now I have found myself being more online based and taking notes online. So yeah.
What about your professors? I know Ashton and Angel have seen my lack of technology capabilities in the classroom and online. But what are your experiences with your various professors and their techno skills? And how did you deal with that? Or how did they deal with it too?
I'll go ahead and go first. I'd say it depended on the professor. I feel like when everything went online, some professors kind of laid back and made the transition easier for us. Others that were more kept up with technology and were already tech savvy with all that. They definitely made the class still more engaging, more challenging, but. Like I said, like the professors that it definitely hit them harder with online transition. I don't think they got the most out of what they wanted to teach, and the students definitely didn't get the most of what they wanted to learn. But it just depended on the professor and how they made that transition, and how they laid that platform out for the students.
I agree. Oh, sorry, you can go.
So for me, on a couple of my classes, I had kind of like simulations where you work with a group. And so I actually had the same professor for both of those classes, and she ended up completely canceling the simulations just because I think it was too hard to try and coordinate. A lot of people weren't familiar with Zoom at that point, and because the change was so sudden. So in a way, it was almost a sigh of because that 5-week simulation was now off of my schedule. And so that kind of opened up more time for me to focus on my other classes. but it just definitely shows that like since we had to change everything so quick, we missed out on kind of like a vital important piece of that class. So we weren't able to do that simulation. So
For me, I think I was lucky enough to have a group of professors that like did anything in their power to make sure that like if I was struggling or anything that they were just an email away or a Zoom call away. I mean, I really have to give a shout out to Dr. Myers. I had her for web last semester, and oh boy, I was scared when I left Lubbock about how that class is going to unfold for me. But I tell you what, she did a great job of screen recording everything we needed to know in separate videos. Or if I ever had an issue, I had a mental breakdown one time, and she Zoomed me and calmed me down and said, hey, it's going to be okay. I just need to just send me this. And she fixed it right away. And so I think just the professors being able to work with us and just make sure that we stay on track was the best thing.
I couldn't agree more with that. Going off of it, my professors, like, they genuinely were outstanding from a student perspective. I think we were fully aware that they were trying to figure out this online platform as well. And so I would get emails from my professors, kind of like the mental health aspect that was touched on earlier, making sure like, are y'all okay? Like, what can I do better as a professor to get you more engaged? So yeah, I really couldn't speak enough praises about my professors.
Yeah, for my professors, they also did a really good job of transitioning everything to online. I think the only challenging thing that most professors found it difficult to find out was the whiteboard capabilities on Zoom. I don't even know if my professors still find that out, but I know we were always having difficulties trying to use a live whiteboard so that we could see what was going on. And also, if you have a screen sharing and say you're holding a presentation, there's certain buttons you have to press in order to allow other people to share their screen. And so, but I think all of us were very much understanding of the technology curve that we were all going through.
Were your professors understanding of you know, life is different? You guys may be working at home trying to share bandwidth, and everybody, the world has turned upside down. Were your professors generally understanding of that?
I think most definitely, especially as a grad student. More grad students tend to be non-traditional students, older, have families. And so not only are you trying to juggle your classes, but now you're essentially a teacher at home for children because all of that went online. And you know, it's hard for younger children to just sit still in front of a screen. And then also you have people who lost their jobs. And so there's, you know, that mental health aspect that we touched on earlier, that it's not just, okay, we're going to school and coming home. There's people who are dealing with, you know, sick relatives or taking care of their younger siblings, you know, their parents lost their jobs. And so most of all of my professors are very understanding. If anybody needed anything or needed to miss class or wanted the class to be recorded, they're very much understanding of all of those.
Okay. Any experience or incidents stand out in your mind you'd like to share with us?
I actually have one. So my Wi-Fi is not very steady here at me and my roommate's house. So sometimes it can just be all over the place. And I actually went in to take a quiz for one of my classes, and it was maybe 20 seconds into the quiz, and then my whole computer just shut down. Like, Wi-Fi kicked me out, everything. And of course, as a student, I'm freaking out because, you know, you just got kicked out of a major quiz. But I emailed my professor super quick, and she was so kind. Her name's Ashley Harry. She's awesome. But she was like, it's okay. It happens. Technology happens, you know, and so she was able to just admit me real quick once, you know, she realized it was legit and stuff. So yeah, that was a positive anyway.
yeah, I think one of mine was my schedule changed a little bit too when I moved back home because I would help one of my little brothers with his math homework. And so I had initially reached out to one of my professors that had Zoom meetings. and he ended up completely kind of changing his class, I guess, from more of a not necessarily synchronous where it's just Zoom, but instead he would just lecture and then post them for us to watch at any point throughout the day. Because initially I think, prior to this pandemic, we all had that 9 o'clock slot empty, and we were used to going to class at that time. But obviously with everyone going home and no longer having class face to face, our schedules can kind of change because maybe we have to help siblings or parents. There's so many things. And I even had friends that went home, and like back in my hometown, they started working at the grocery store, like just to help out since they had lost their job in college and since their parents had gone through a lot of that. So I found it really helpful that my professor switched he did like 1 week of Zoom classes and then went ahead and switched to just pretty much posting lectures for you to watch at any point during the day, because he thought it would be better since all of our schedules had changed post-pandemic. So
That raises a question that someone posted on the chat. Do you have a preference whether your classes be synchronous or asynchronous?
I don't know that I necessarily have a preference. I do think for me, I am such a face-to-face learner, so I do prefer being more on like a set schedule, like you do have class at this time. But I think everyone's styles of learning are different, especially when you have a class so big. So it's kind of hard to, I guess, please everyone. So I think no matter which way it would be, as a student, like you can adjust either way.
I think for me, I would prefer asynchronous or like a combination of the two where you can give the students the option to attend the live Zoom class, but also record, such as we're doing now, just record it and upload that to Blackboard or whatever platform. And that way that gives students, if they want to attend at the class time because they want to be on a schedule and a routine, that gives them that option. But also, if their schedule is not so set, then it gives other students the option to attend at a later time. And then because it's synchronous, that also gives students a chance to ask questions live. And so that gives them a little bit more of a face-to-face feel.
Okay. One of the things that interested me in this morning's talk was one of our speakers talked about walking into the classroom and being authentic and saying, okay, our world is changing. Do y'all have any ideas? And I can remember asking something similar in my classes and saying, okay, we're about to change and it'll be all right. I remember Bob Marley going on in my head, every little thing's going to be all right. But at the same time, I'm open to suggestions. You guys, are pretty bright, and so give me feedback. And did your professors give you an opportunity to make suggestions or chime in your education? Or Bueller.
I had one. Oh, sorry. Okay, I had one professor because we found out right before spring break, and I had her for 2 classes. And in each class, all we did the last day is she just put, what are the challenges you think you're going to face? What can I do as a professor? And so I think that really allowed the class as a whole to give their input. And based on our feedback, I mean, I could tell she really tried to accommodate to everyone, and you could tell she really took everyone's feedback seriously. So I think that was super beneficial, especially because some students had never even taken an online class, and they were vocal about it. And so, yeah, she really did a great job with that.
Angel, you going to say something?
No, yeah, Carly basically summed it up for me. I feel like the professors were pretty lenient. They asked for advice, they asked for help. They just kind kind of wanted to get a feel for how the students, or what was the best option for the students. And I think all my professors were pretty open to any suggestions or any input that the students wanted to help out for to better the, the transition of the classes.
Anyone else? Okay. I learned a lot about myself during this transition. I also learned what not to do in the classroom, what to do, part of that being technology, part of that being human nature. What have you learned about yourself during this process, either as a student or as a person?
A lot of it for me is, I mentioned it earlier, but I like to have a constant schedule. And it was nothing for me to leave early in the mornings and not see my roommates till later at night. So it was a huge self-reflection time for me. And at first I was very like, oh my goodness, my life is going to shift, kind of negative, I guess, towards it. But it was interesting to see how my perspective changed, because I really saw it more as a season of gratefulness. Just the fact that I got to spend more time with my family, invest in my friends more. So I really learned more about myself to just take a step back, because you're never going to have this season again, especially wanting to go into the sports industry. So yeah, learned a lot about myself.
Yeah, I'd say I learned a lot just, with picking up different habits. This was definitely a time for, I think, everyone to just, take a step back and really look within, because there's like a 2-month period where, a lot of isolation, a lot of just, being enclosed in the environment that you were in. And I personally, picked up different habits such as, meditating or reading. And I learned a lot about myself through that, because I, just trying new things and learning new things, and just becoming a better version of myself. That's what I feel like, that's how I feel like I learned some different things about myself in that manner, things that I didn't see myself doing before. And, with this whole pandemic, it gave an opportunity and a leverage to try those new things. So.
Yeah, I definitely picked up on some new hobbies thanks to quarantine. I quickly learned that I had a lot of classwork and I would be able to knock it out, earlier in the day, and I would have the rest of the day to, have free. So I took up houseplants and, started doing all sorts of things. Like I started doing home workouts. So I definitely got a little creative with how to spend my days, but now I'm happy. I have all my house plants, so that's at least one great thing that came from quarantine, if nothing else.
I think like a lot of the same as everybody else. I think just being able to kind of reflect like within yourself, kind of like what you're missing or what you need to improve on. And like for school wise, like I said earlier, I'm very diligent in school. Like I'm not a procrastinator by any means. And so I think like me being able to like do all my schoolwork early and then like leave the rest of the day allowed me to do other things, just like Ashton had said. I also took up some home workouts and try to take up the day. And then obviously like I had sheep to take care of, and we were getting ready for our summer show series. So I spent the rest of my day out in the barn getting the sheep ready and getting them halter broke and stuff. So it kind of allowed me to kind of go back to my roots and be able to spend some time in the barn.
And I think for me, what I learned most is how to time manage. I think by seeing the two extremes, so like as a grad student, not only do I do research, but then I have my own classes, then I teach, and then you have like all different kinds of requirements you have to meet for the grad school. And so, pre-COVID, my schedule was just busy 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then it just stopped, and all of a sudden I just had all this time available, and all I was like, I wish I could go back to my schedule. I'm sure a lot of people felt like that is, you're always, when you're really busy, you're like, I just want to break. And then all of a sudden we had 4 months of break, and I was like, I just want to go back and be busy. And so I found myself thinking, now that we're kind of going into phase 2 and phase 1, that I can make time for the things that are important to me, like hobbies or health, working out. Before, I would always use this excuse like I don't have time. But I think I learned by seeing the two extremes that I can make time, and that it's important to set time for other things.
One of the questions that's come up is how safe do you feel on campus right now in terms of the COVID virus?
I'll just be completely honest. All my classes are online again this semester. They all got moved. I definitely wish they were in person more than anything. I would love to be back on campus. I feel like Tech has really taken a lot of measures to ensure professor and student safety. So I definitely do wish that I was on campus.
Yeah, I have one class face to face, actually two. And on campus, yeah, we sit socially distanced. You know, we were masked in class, and I think that's another challenge for me is, you know, sitting in an hour and a half lecture with your mask on the whole time it can get tough. It can get stuffy in there for sure. But for the most part, Tech has done a great job. But as of the student environment and, you know, just being in Lubbock and being surrounded by a bunch of 18 to 23-year-old college kids, you know, and when you take it from campus just to the student environment, a lot of people here just, to be frank with you, like they don't care really. You know, walking around here, no one's really wearing a mask, and the complexes or they only wear a mask because they're required to. But I think it's such a big cluster and congregation of, you know, younger kids, like they don't put that into perspective. I think, you know, when we were back at home and with our grandparents or parents or, you know, different environment, we were a lot more conscious and, you know, not only respectful, but just, you know, we were following the rules a lot more because we had to for the looking out for others. But I feel like here, like, you know, being individuals and people going back to, you know, living by themselves, they lose that that charisma, I guess.
So for me, like a lot of I have like one fully face-to-face class, and then the rest of mine are hybrid. And I think like within each class, all the professors do a very good job about social distancing, wearing their masks, and like making sure that before we sit down, we have to wipe down our tables with a wipe. And so like I feel safe here because like I think they're doing everything in their like power to make sure that we're safe and we're sanitary while we're in class. And I think the rest is up to us out of class if we want to stay safe. Like it falls on us, honestly, as students, because the school's doing what they can. And if we don't abide by that outside of school and being on campus, then that just falls on us, and it's our fault that if we're going to go down, you know.
Yeah, so I have one face-to-face class, well, one, and then I teach face-to-face labs. And I think at first, most of us were really nervous because there's one thing to go to the grocery store and social distance and wear masks, and sure, that works there. But then this was the first time we were moving to a lower phase and interacting more with students and just the sheer amount of students. And so I think for me personally, I was very nervous the first few weeks, but I think we're moving into week 4 now, and I interact with, you know, 80 plus students a week, then along with my fellow grad students in my own classes. And so far everything's been fine. And I haven't heard of anybody in our department in terms of grad students having COVID. And so, yeah, I think at first I was very nervous, but moving into week 4, I feel like the social distancing and the masks are definitely working in our favor.
Okay. I'm just going to ask one final question and then open it up for our attendees to ask questions. What do you wish your professors knew or realized or thought about? Just, this is your chance to tell us something, and then anything else you would like to tell us. Anyone can start.
Okay, I think that, well, I have two things really. Is one is not everybody, not all students have the most reliable internet or reliable technology like computers. Not everybody has the latest, Mac or Windows. Some programs may not be compatible. That happened to me actually, as my computer was not compatible with Zoom and all of these different things that I had to do. And so it was a struggle for me to not only on top of everything else, but now think about investing in new technology like printers and, updated internet. And so I hope that professors know that, it's not, if they are having technical difficulties, I hope that they are sympathetic with students. And then also, on my second note, is that just because classes are online doesn't mean that now all of a sudden students have more time. A lot of times with online classes, professors now think that, oh, well, you're not going to school, so now you have all this time. And that's not the case with a lot of students. And so I hope that they're also being aware of that and structuring their course as they would in a normal semester and not adding things on because now it's online and they think that students have more time.
Thank you.
I can kind of go off of that a little bit. I feel like one of my courses, the course load got heavier when we went online, and I think it did play into the amount of time that might have been perceived that we had. So I would definitely say that just because it is online doesn't mean we aren't trying. Students really are trying as hard as they can to get all the kinks out. So yeah, I would definitely go off of what Ashley said.
Ashton, Brianna, Angel, you guys have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, just more along the lines of what they said as well. I think every professors that I've had at least has been pretty open, and everyone knows these are different times, and we're all adjusting to something new, and we're all adjusting to different living habits and the ways we interact and just how we handle everything in all aspects of life. And I don't think I've ran into anybody that's been, I guess, to rephrase this, it's everyone's been like-minded in the way that we're all trying to learn and we're all trying to help each other to move through this. So but suggestions of professors, just be open, be empathetic, and just know this is a different time for everyone. And I know this as a student, I'm empathetic to y'all as well because everyone's trying to handle everything differently. So.
Okay. Let's see. Any questions from our attendees? Let's see. Oh, do you have any higher expectations of your faculty this fall? Given the springtime, it was sort of like, okay, hurry up, you're switching online, like you got 2 weeks, go. Now we've had a whole summer, even if we didn't find out about it until a couple of weeks before the fall started, whether we were teaching online. Do you have higher expectations of your classes, of your professors for fall than you did in mid-spring?
So I just kind of think that, like, obviously it kind of just got all thrown on us, like us and the professors in the spring. But I still think transitioning into the fall, none of these professors are like used to teaching some of these courses online. So I feel like they're still learning and trying to implement ways that how to teach new classes that are normally just all in the fall and in person. They're still trying to figure it out themselves. And so, I mean, yeah, they had a little bit longer to figure it out, but I still don't think that it's fair to kind of put a target on their back, like, hey, you should have your stuff together, because they're still learning and still trying to figure out how to teach new material,
I think we may have a higher expectation on ourselves.
think the best thing about kind of having a little bit of a heads up to know if your class has been online last semester, I think there was maybe one class where my syllabus stayed the same, but for the for the most part, like I was getting emailed updated syllabuses, updated due dates, updated schedules. So that's one nice thing is yes, everyone's still adjusting and probably getting used to the new idea of having everything online now. But for the most part, I like that all the adjustments have kind of already been made. And so we're not, because last semester, it was really hard trying to update my planner and scratching stuff out because, I was doing my best to be as organized as possible. But, when everything switched, it was just like, okay, well, this is now due this day. So it is nice now, like now that we've made those plans and everything, that they're kind of set in stone now versus as last semester, everything was kind of getting switched around.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of them. I do think it is still a transition, just being on the student end, regardless, just juggling more classes. But I think there's always grace that has to be there for all parties. And I think that's so valuable because as a student, I mean, we know our professors are doing everything they can in trying to help us get the most out of their course.
I see notes of appreciation for you for being understanding of your professors. Is there technology that you like, given all the technologies that you've interacted with, and technologies you do not like? My students know how much I like Blackboard, he said sarcastically.
I feel like Zoom's the most common platform for most of my classes anyway. And so it is a little harder, say like one class requires a certain platform, another requires another. So that's where, for me, it gets challenging. But I would say Zoom is definitely more normalized now. So it's by far my favorite platform. And too, because I've kind of figured it out now. So that's a big bonus.
A lot of my professors use like a screencast system, so because like since I am at Com, they have to show us in like the Adobe softwares what we need to use and how to use it, and so they'll go in there and use a screencast and show us exactly how to do things if we're like, since we're not allowed to be in class. And so I really find that beneficial for me, so I can actually like basically be hands-on and like see them do it, but just over the computer screen.
All of my classes have been on Zoom, so I haven't had much any other platforms that were used in my classes. I did hear though that Canva, I think it's Canva or Canvas, I'm sure y'all know, the other learning platform that other institutions use I heard that that particular platform was very good for transitioning to online. And so I would have liked to see that. But personally, my professors all use the same Zoom platform, and so I haven't had much experience with other platforms.
I have a question. Is there something that we can do as faculty to stay better connected with our students?
Yeah, I think just a key thing before, going in any meeting or online lecture or just, just getting to work or learn or teach, I think it's really important to just be personal with the students and professors. Just, just break the ice. Like, just, hey, how was your weekend? Or tell me a story about, the summer. I think when we open up to just personal things like that, it's way easier to connect with the teacher and student, and instead of just going into straight lecture and learn or teach mode. Like, I feel like you can gain a little bit of background or a little bit of knowledge about the people you're interacting with, and when you can break the ice like that, I think it becomes a lot easier to be personal and connect with each other, and it becomes better.
in my classes, I think whenever the professor asks like, how are you doing as a person, that helps the professor better connect with their students. I know for me in my classes, professors will always ask us like, hey, how are y'all doing? Not in terms of school, but outside. Everybody's dealing with a lot. Some people have lost their jobs. Maybe their parents have lost jobs. Maybe they're taking care of younger siblings now that they're staying home. There's a whole bunch of things that are still going on. And so it's nice whenever professors keep that door of communication open, like, hey, if you ever need something, or if you ever want to talk about anything that's unrelated to class, feel free. And so I really appreciate when my professors always ask like, how are you mentally? How are you?
Any other questions?
This is just an idea that came to my head because
Yes.
I know when professors ask students, oh, hey, how are you doing? Especially on Zoom, a lot of people just don't want to talk. But I feel like to make it more fun, maybe this is just an example I used from my internship past summer because we would have like themes before we'd go into like, our weekly meetings on Fridays or whatever. Like, just have a certain theme, like, hey, if you could be somebody for one day, like who would you be? Just just more interesting questions like that instead of, hey, how's it been, or how's it been going, or tell me a story. Like, get people thinking. And I think when you throw out questions like that, it can make it a little bit more fun and interactive instead of just having basic questions. So maybe, yeah, just more themed questions, I guess.
Just throw people off balance and get them thinking about something else, and you never know what pops up. Yeah, it's good. I like that.
So far this semester, I've had a class where our professor, we work in groups and we got together as a group and we Zoom with him, and it's mandatory. And it's just kind of that time where we get to meet him and like interact with him. And so I've personally, found that really beneficial because just like everyone else, I do prefer that face-to-face interaction.
Yeah.
And so, I know a ton of professors, everyone's very open on, hey, I have virtual office hours and everything, but all of my professors have been amazing and accommodating on, like they were talking about, of just, even if you don't want to talk about school related things, you can. And so for me, I really enjoyed having that meeting initially because it's not like I was just Zooming him because I had a question. It was just kind of like a, hey, where are you from? Kind of getting to know each other on that basis. So yeah, I've really enjoyed that, to try and connect a little bit more than it just be, oh, I know this person is my professor and, that's it. So it's been nice.
Can you guys give us some suggestions on how to reach those students that maybe aren't so engaged? I found last semester especially that I'd be on a class, my class, we do role plays, and then as students drop off, there'd be one student left, and turns out that student was incredibly lonely. We wind up talking for like 20 or 30 minutes just because they had lost connection. Or I find students that just sort of have dropped, and then I reach out when I realize they miss assignments, and it's like, are you okay? Is there any way that we can find those people ahead of time, or reach out? Is there a way to find out that, hey, somebody's really struggling? Or can we tell them, hey, we're here? I mean, do students feel comfortable approaching their professors when they're struggling?
I know I have one professor specifically, and it's just made very evident, like it's always an open door policy, no matter what. And I know it's translated through all this virtual platform. And again, just like getting constant emails of just like, let me know if y'all need help with anything, navigating your classes, and I really think that goes a long way with students, especially like freshmen and sophomores, because they're just now getting into college. And I can't imagine being in their shoes, if I'm being honest, just because it is so different to go onto a online platform for a college class. It's different than high school. So I would just encourage, like, as professors, just to constantly, make it evident that you really are there for your students. Because I know it's gone a long way with some of my classmates.
I think one of the ways that you can find those students that may be struggling is, well, usually in a face-to-face class, a good idea would be to have like smaller groups throughout the class, maybe give, one portion of the class a certain topic to discuss, and break them up into like groups of 4 or 5. And I know on Zoom, they have this capability as well, where they have these breakout groups, and you as the host can kind of jump into the different groups. So perhaps maybe having these small breakout groups where the groups discuss certain topics related to the class, and then you kind of pop in, and that way you have a little bit more sense of which students are talking and actively discussing, and then maybe which students might be struggling.
All right. Well, we're getting close to the end of our time, and I want to thank our 5 panelists for generously giving us an hour of your time, and more importantly, your thoughts and feedback. As always, the voice of the students is what matters. We do our job because of you. I mean, and it's really valuable. I can't stress enough how much we value what you tell us. And I'm just seeing the comments pop up in the chat, and I know every time we have a session like this with students, it's always the best session. So thank you so much, and good luck with school and with dealing with this craziness, and just thank you. So guys, give them claps. We have on this system, we do these virtual claps. I don't know if you've seen these Zoom claps. Everybody's muted, so you can't hear us too well. But thank you very much. And I'm gonna
Thank you so much for allowing me to be on this panel. It was a great hour. Nice meeting all of you, and thank you so much again, Professor McDonald.
You bet. Thanks.
Good luck this semester.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank y'all. And just again, like from a student, thank you for what y'all do. It really is appreciated from a student standpoint. And so very appreciative.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you guys again. It's wonderful, and you guys are doing a great job. So don't get too hard on yourself.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much for being so flexible and accommodating, because especially in these next few months of uncertainty, it's very helpful that you guys are so flexible and willing to help us. So thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you everybody for having us on the panel. And if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to Bob to get my email. I'm more than happy to answer any more questions, especially as a grad student. I know some of you professors may have TAs that kind of take a hold of your class as well.
Okay, thank you. And you guys are welcome to stick around. We have a lightning round coming up where we have